Madhouse Podcasting Network.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Behind the Mask Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and I am here with the one and only Scott Whiteside, aka Lucifer from Ghost Town Streets, Not Scary Farm. Dude, Scott, what's up, man?
Hey, how you going?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I see something. I see a couple.
Yeah, I brought the heads out in case nobody knows who I am anymore, right?
So a little story, guys. Scott. So I have a big connection with Scott here, and we became pretty good friends because, he wanted a mask, and I was kind of dabbling into potentially making some Halloween masks, and we both ventured into this little thing together. So I have to give Scott all the kudos for my intro into mask making because he's the first one. We did the mask, and it's like, honestly, let me show you something, Scott. And it
I can kind of see the one on your wall behind you.
I was waiting for this moment. I was waiting till I got you on before I actually took it down.
Yeah.
Because you'll see why I've been wanting to take it down, and I unfortunately there's two things. I have to get rid of this one I'm taking down. You'll see why. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
So
that disintegrated, man.
For all you, this is my very, 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 very first mask. Like the very first one I pulled. This was the test subject, and it was way too thin, super, super, super thin. And so this is like what happens when you pull the mask out of the mold too soon.
Yeah.
But it was intact for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So
I was told that you had one, and the guy from Haunted Media,
Scott
Broad said he had one.
I don't know if he still does, but
here's the funny thing, right? So when you did this, you told me that you screwed up a lot of things, and one of the things you screwed up was, I think you said you were supposed to put hot water in it, and you put cold. Your life cast. Yeah.
Yes. So your life cast, I put a little too hot water. It's technically supposed to be like lukewarm or be more towards the colder, but it's supposed to be room temperature essentially. And your life cast was a little too hot, and that was one thing because the alginate. Well, what I remember, the alginate basically just kind of was really brittle.
Yeah.
But we were able to get a life cast out of it.
Well, what's funny is, like I said, I can see you doing it in the video, but when you put it on, it felt fantastic. Mm-hmm. It was like a mud thing, it was like a spa day, right?
Yeah.
And then as I'm sitting there, you guys all leave, and I'm sitting there, and it's starting to warm up. And I'm like, oh my God, how hot is this thing going to get? And then you guys finally came back and took it off. Yeah. And so it was kind of creepy to see your face, larger than life with your eyes closed like you're dead.
Yeah.
Almost, And
it's pretty crazy how they call it. I don't know the origins behind them calling it a life cast. I think it's just because I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would think that they would call it a death cast because it really looks like you're dead.
Yeah. It does.
I had one done a couple years back. And it's the same thing. And of course, I recorded that, and Scott drew all over it. And I don't know if we ended up drawing on yours.
Well, the funny thing is, we did 3 for me, right? Mm-hmm. So the one right here, that is the first one that we did, and you did it, and it's held up the best.
Wow.
You did it a little thick, I think, and it's really solid. It's in fantastic shape. It's still usable.
Wow.
Then we did a second one, and we did that a little thinner, and that's the one I used most of the time because it looked the best. and it was a little bit lighter and it was pretty durable. But after a few years, it started to get some little like holes in it, and it started to break down. So we took some shoe goo, and I still have it. It's in the other room. I mean, if I wanted to put some stuff in it, I probably could still use it. And then the third one we made, I used for like a year, and it didn't look quite as good. That one's really thin.
Yeah.
So, but the funniest, the first one we ever made held up it's still in fantastic condition.
Yeah.
And what was funny about it was, every year I had to redo the hair.
Yeah.
And everybody was always giving me shit because why are you always brushing your hair? You're worse than a girl, And I'm like, because if I don't, it gets ratty, it gets tangled out, and I don't want to have to rehair this thing.
Yep.
And then when I became friends with Mark, who does Gargoyle, his wife, he was making masks too, and I noticed that he had something under the hair. I want to say it was his bunny one or so. He did a few different masks, and they put like a fun fur underneath it, and the fun fur kept the hair from tangling. Oh. So I hardly ever had to brush it out. So this one has the fun fur. She did the hair. It's got like real strands of hair that she bought, so it really held up very, very well. That's like the same hair I've had for like 6 years since I've retired.
Wow.
Because I used that the very last year, because the one that I really liked the most, it just wore out, and you can see little pockets of skin.
Right.
So
yeah, this is the mask that I admire the most. Not this, yours next to Mike's here. This one, because you remember Mike Moore? He was in Ghost Town with us, tall guy. He dated Danielle for quite a bit.
Oh yeah. I got footage of him too. Yeah, I got him and Danielle.
So this is his mask that we did, and we did almost like a whole bodysuit. It was it was right around the time Haunted Mansion came out, and Rick Baker did all the skeletons, and that inspired me to do a skeleton. I told him, I'm like, let's just do a full skeleton suit. The suit didn't come out very well, but the mask that it came out really cool.
So those are like those full head that you put on and it forms to it looks like hot as hell.
So this one I pulled super thick because it was going to be a display piece, but I kind of pulled his a little too thick, only because I wanted it to kind of feel a little bit and hard. I didn't want it to jiggle around. Now I know different techniques now to make certain points harder, and then be able to make the points that you need thinner.
Right.
But anyways, he wasn't able to move his neck too much, so it was a little uncomfortable. It was trial and error, because this one was, I would probably say, year 2 of me doing masks. Yeah. Or maybe it was actually year 1, because I did.
Wasn't that a line in Batman where he goes, "Oh, you want to be able to move your head?"
Yeah, exactly. So anyways,
because he's always so stiff.
So it was a lot of lessons learned when we did yours, Lucifer. Obviously the second pull we did, I mean, it's holding up. How many years is it now? Over almost God. 30?
We did this 20? One in 2003.
Okay.
So next year that'll be 20 years old?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
And
we did everything right with this, because I got to tell you, when I put it on, it wasn't like I had anything on. It was like being out there in 2D makeup, because the face was rubber, but because the nose stuck out on like the flat ones, the air could circulate in there. And so it kept me cool. I could breathe. The back is a sock.
Yeah.
So you can sweat the heat out.
Right.
I mean, it really, I think we kind of stumbled onto perfection with it, because it really, we took all the best elements of all the different masks and put them in one.
Exactly.
Because with this son of a bitch, I still don't know how I did this one for 5 years. I was looking through little slits above the eyes. When I first got it, the thing was like an aquarium on my head. I had to put like a piece of foam behind my head to push it up so I could see. And I didn't have peripheral. I couldn't see down. All I could see was straight forward.
Yeah.
And then Dennis Beckstrom said, well, maybe you could get like an elastic strap and stitch it. He goes, but you'd have to hack the back of the mask. And I was like, I can do that if it helps. And so we did that. And then that's when we got the idea, because the hair was a lot different when on the original mask.
Yeah.
It was very minimal, because when the guy did these, that was the thing that was the hardest to do. I don't know if you're aware of it, but when Beckstrom did his mask, he punched every strand of hair into it. And he even sold his mask to the guy, Jeff Death was the one who did the original one.
Oh.
He sold his mask to him, and he would get a percentage of the mask. And he says, my masks aren't selling because he's selling them without the hair.
Yeah.
And without the hair made the mask.
It did.
And but he said, if you want one of my masks with the hair punched, it's going to be like $1,000. And I was like, oh my God, man, that's crazy. So I was like, I got to figure out a better way to do hair. And that's when, we were doing the E6000 work on it. So that worked really well.
Yeah. The E6000 is great. Like, it holds, like, I got to a point. So the way that I do hair now is, if I want to do the punched look, I will do basically the top part and I will latex it in.
Right. You got to figure where you're going to do the hairline.
And then the hairline I punch if I want to make it look like it's punched in, Yeah. If I want to do just a kind of, run and gun, whatever, then I'll just go E6000, like just a natural wig that people can go, there's so many different ways you can do it. But when you got the hair done, that took that mask to
definitely.
Such a whole new level, because we didn't do hair on it.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. What made you go to become a scare actor at Knott's?
Okay, well, I'd been a few times. I went with when I was in high school. I think my senior year in high school, I took a girl, and I remember George Case.
Yep.
Yeah. We were walking along, and he came up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked, I'm like, holy shit. And he's like, he motions me like to back off, and he slipped his arm around the girl that I was with. And it was right in the front of the park, right where the gate is. And she's just, yeah. And she looks up and sees him and just freaks out, man. And I'm laughing so hard. And a couple other things. We went through some mazes. I think there was Mother Noose's Scary Tales. And I walked over, there was a bridge, and there was all these guys underneath it, and the hands were coming up and stuff. And I walked over, and I turned, and I'm like, what the hell? And she's like, I'm not walking over that. And I had to go pick her up and take her. So, I mean, I remember I had such a blast. And so when I met my wife, who I'm with now, I'm like, we got to go do this Scary Farm thing, because when I was a kid, I went and did it. So we went and did it, and we were both saying, like, oh my God, this looks like a blast. If I lived closer, I might apply. And so we ended up moving to Orange County. We were up in Palmdale for a while, and we moved to Orange County. And the oddest thing, we're sitting at the breakfast table, and she sees the flyer, and she's like, didn't you say you wanted to do this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she shows it. It says it's auditions for the Knott's Monsters. And I was like, yeah. She says, well, you should go do it. So I wander on down to Knott's, and I know that a lot of people that I've watched on your videos were talking about auditions, and they still had auditions. And I think this was the last year. I'm pretty sure it was the last year, because the next year I didn't have to audition. They just sent the rehire card out.
Yeah.
I walked into the Birdcage Theater. I knew nobody. I mean, I was totally by myself.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of the same, huh?
And they did it in the Birdcage Theater?
They did it, and it was in the Birdcage, right?
Interesting.
And so you had all these people that were auditioning. They had us in groups, and I remember Jeff Tucker was sitting up against the wall, and he was higher up, but he was giving us direction. He was saying, okay, do your best monster walk, give us your best scream. They would show us a slide, and if I remember right, we had a mummy, and they said, okay, you do the mummy. And we all did, what they told us to do, which was just basically act like a fool.
Right.
I think they wanted to see if we could think on our feet, who was shy, who was out.
I lost you. We're having technical difficulties.
Yes. And
sorry, I lost you. You completely stopped.
Okay.
Let's go back to acting like a fool.
Oh yeah, we were acting like a fool. And so like I said, after we'd all done our audition, somebody came and handed out these slips of paper. And the one that I got said GTS. I had no idea what GTS. And the funny thing was, when I went to haunt originally as a guest, the big attractions there were the mine ride and the log ride.
Right.
And I'm thinking I hope I get that, because that looked so much fun in there, Now I hear all these horror stories about being trapped in a box or being chained to the wall, or with the one with Gloria said she's up in the rafters all by herself and she's seeing real ghosts.
Yeah.
But those were the ones that had the longest lines. And I mean, the haunted shack was pretty cool too. But so they hand me a thing that says GTS. I have no idea, but I'm seeing some of the other people, they obviously knew each other and they're all comparing notes and stuff. And this guy comes up to me, he's like, "What'd you get?" And I said, "Well, I got GTS." I said, "I don't know what that is." And he looks at me, he goes, "Have you done this before?" And I said, "No, this is my first time." He's like, "I can't believe this." And I said, what's the problem? He's like, "I've been doing this for 10 years and I got the mine right." And I'm like, "That's what I wanted," and he's like, "No, trust me." He goes, "You don't want it." He's like, "I can't believe you guys." He says, "Ghost Town streets." He says, "You're going to be out on the streets." And so I'm starting to think, well, I kind of saw some guys out there before. We saw a guy sliding, and obviously the Frankenstein dude was out there. And but before I know it, this guy's telling me, "Okay, you need to go to wardrobe." So I go to wardrobe and they give me the standard jeans and the vest. And then they said, "Okay, now go over here or whatever." And there's this big box of masks. And I mean, these things were crap,
Yeah.
And, I'm sifting through them. And I remember seeing a werewolf mask, and I'd seen it on, so I knew that looked cool because I'd seen that there was a guy that wore that. And so I thought, okay, I'll take this one. But, I really wasn't, real stoked about it. And I'm the type of person I know there was some really cool, so I wanted to do something. So I talked to somebody, I said, "I know they have us do these issued things, but if we wanted to do our own thing, would they let us?" And somebody said, "Well, yeah, but you'd have to get it approved. And if it's got to fit with your theme."
Right.
And so I wasn't even into werewolves at the time. I mean, the only thing that I'd seen werewolf was American Werewolf in London when I was like 10.
Yeah.
And that thing scared the crap out of me. And, so the werewolf, since I had the werewolf mask, I thought, well, if I get a better werewolf mask, they'll probably approve it or something similar, because I didn't want to be a skeleton, because there was a lot of skeletons, there was a lot of dead cowboys. So I kind of thought, if I go in an animal direction. So one day I'm thumbing through what actually was a Playboy magazine, and in the back they had these ads for things, and it showed like 4 masks. It had a pumpkin skull. All these were really cool. It had a jester. It had a clown and a werewolf, and the werewolf looked really cool.
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, I'm going to buy this thing. And this thing was like almost $200. So I knew it was going to be cool.
Yeah.
And so I called the guy up and to order it. And he goes, you realize this is like, this is more art than it is something that you would wear. And I'm like, yeah, I got a big head, so it'll fit, And he's like, okay. And I thought I'd specified that I wanted it by October 1st, because this was like September when I had ordered this thing, and it didn't show up. So I had to wear the one that they gave me, which looked like, Spike It was the same mask, and there were two of those masks.
Oh wow.
And I don't think he knew there were two, because he ran into me and he was looking at me like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I'm looking at him like, hey, you look like me.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a funny meeting. But I had told him, I said, yeah, I ordered one, but it hasn't shown up yet. And so and I called the guy up and he said, well, you'll have it by Halloween. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I need it now because I'm doing this thing. And he's like, well, I'll try to get it out to you sooner. But he says, I do these, like, I make them, then I spray them all, and then I do the detail, then I put the hair on. So he did like an assembly line thing with them. And, so he does them all in batches. And I think I finally ended up getting the mask like a week before Halloween. Oh, wow. And then when I went to Tim to try to get it okayed, he's like, oh no, it's way too far. We got like a week left to go. And I'm like, dude, it's a werewolf. I paid like almost $200 for this thing. And finally I broke him down and he let me wear them. And so I'm out there and I'm running and I'm like, I'm a target because I can't see shit.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I started talking to Dennis Beckstrom, and he was like, well, shove some foam in there because you need to get that up against your face so you can see. And I really couldn't move around. So I would like go over, where the museum was. Yeah. And I'd stand on the steps and I'd just find a place, or I'd go up against the wall and just act like I was a statue. And then people come by and I jump out and scare them. In fact, that place where the witch usually goes. Yeah. I was doing that long before she was there. But the funny thing was I couldn't see people coming. I had to look at the shadows. Or I had, if it was quiet, I could hear, right? Right. And then I had to get the timing down. And there was one night I remember where it was really dead. And I'm like, come on, man, I want somebody to scare. And I jumped out when this guy came along and I scared the living crap out of him. And it was my talent cat. And he's like, dude, you're not supposed to scare us, Yeah. And I couldn't tell him, well, I can't freaking see, or he wouldn't have let me use the mask, So, yeah. So so over the next 5 years, Dennis helped me modify the thing to where it made it usable. But when I look back, like when I remember I put it on one time after I had the one you made me for a couple of years. I'm like, how in the fuck did I do this?
And that's the one that's behind you?
Yeah, this is the one you made. Yeah. And this is the one that I got from Death Studios. Okay. And yeah, I mean, it's like I guess where there's a will, there's a way. And I probably would have liked to go to makeup or got something that was more functional, but I was getting so many damn compliments. It just kind of feeds your ego.
It also wouldn't have been the same. Makeup's great and all, but I think you were in the perfect position because I had makeup for several years and it was great. But then once there were times where I didn't want to go out in makeup, so I'd just bring one of my sock masks or something. Right. And just the ability to be able to take it off and breathe,
Well, that's the funny thing, because for all the years that I worked, I never had makeup. And I saw the upside to it and I saw the downside. And definitely, like you said, the downside to it was that sticky stuff that they apply it with can really do a number on your face and skin. Mm-hmm. And also when people would take their breaks, a lot of them, they had a really tough time eating. They had to pull it up, shove the food under. Yeah. They had to, they could only suck it through a straw.
Well, imagine you did a werewolf, you would have had that long snout to have to deal with. That would have been a nightmare. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there was one makeup that I think it was Chris Santiago's, because I think he had Pumbaa, the Pumbaa looking thing. Yeah, and he also had this raven, and what was cool about the raven was it was kind of like a shower cap, or a bald cap, and it went over the top of his head, and then the beak came down and covered his face, and then all they put on was the chin. Yeah. And that worked really cool. And that looks really badass.
Yeah. I think they didn't really glue the top part down.
Yeah, they didn't need to, because it kind of just stuck like a cap. And then the front, there was no weight to it. Right. So the only thing they had to glue was the chin piece.
Yeah. Because I remember he would put it up like a hat sometimes while he was eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So funny story real quick before we move on though. So the first year I did it, I'm kind of a loner. I didn't know anybody there. I'd made a friend with one guy. I don't know if you remember Jake Sullivan.
Yes.
Yeah. He'd come over from Snoopy and we were hanging together and I was giving him rides because he didn't have a car. And then Jake wasn't there one day. And Craig had told me he had a run-in with the law of some sort. I don't know what it was. But I wasn't even thinking about coming back again. I didn't realize that they would send you a rehire car, but my talent captain, I went up to thank him. I'm like, hey, I had a lot of fun. He's like, oh, if we had a lot of fun, you're going to come back next year, right? And I said, I didn't realize, I didn't really have thought about it. And he said, oh yeah, you'll get a rehire card and this and that. And then as I was talking to him, Craig walked up to me and he said, hey, how would you like to do Frankenstein? And on one hand, I was really flattered that he'd asked.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I said, I don't want to say, I spent $200 on this mask. I kind of want to, see it through. And he goes, I wasn't real happy with the guy that did Frankenstein this year. We had some issues. And he said, so if you want to come back next year, he's like, come see me and we'll talk about Frankenstein. And when I did come back the next year, I figured when he saw me, he would say something to me about it, but he didn't. So I went up to him a couple of days. I think it was during the orientation. And I said, did you still want me to do the Frankenstein? And he said something to the fact of like, he goes, well, he says, the guy who originally did it wanted to come back and do it. And he says, but unfortunately he passed away. So he said, we're going to retire the character.
Yeah.
And so if George hadn't told him he wanted to come back, this may have never happened.
Yeah.
So it was just, it was luckily. And then Craig asked me like 5 years later, he goes, you've been here a while and you want makeup. And I had gotten so vested in the character that I was like, as much as I'd love to, because it was at the time, it was like such a big deal. I'm like, I really like the character that I've created. I'm going to stick with it. And I think that was the same year. I don't even remember how we met, but I remember just you saying I could make a better version of that for you.
Yeah.
So, and then that was all she wrote.
Yeah, it was because you kept talking about you can't see out of it and all that, and I'm like, yeah, you can do it a lot better. Because then, like, I think I had recommended just cutting out those eyes.
Yeah, but I didn't want to try.
I
didn't want to trash it.
Yeah, I didn't know how much you paid for it back then.
Yeah,
I would have said, "Oh, never mind." But it worked out because we definitely made.
Oh, we did the best thing we could have done because, like I said, it doesn't even feel like I'm wearing anything.
Yeah,
it feels like makeup. So, and like I said, because it's so lightweight, it's contoured to my face, and I can see, really, really well out of it.
Yeah, and everyone loves it. Everybody. There's so many people love that thing. I was talking to somebody, I don't know, it might have been at a show or I don't know where it was, but I was talking to someone and Lucifer came up. We're like, yeah, I worked with Lucifer and so-and-so, and they're like, oh my God, that is the best mask that out there, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I didn't say anything. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
like, because I don't like to like go, oh, I did that. It doesn't do anything.
You know what like, though, you should be proud.
I'm proud, but I'm secretly proud.
Like with blinders, and the sculpting was amazing. And then even though with all the mistakes that you made, how good it was and how long it lasted and what it became. And I've looked online for other masks and I've seen a few, but they're either like cheesy as hell or they're expensive as hell for really good ones. And for what it's worth, I mean, it just really, it came out really, really good. It doesn't look goofy. And it, like I said, it's in the when you add looks and function, you usually don't get that. You either get function or you don't get both.
Right.
And that's really so. I mean, a lot of guys who are in the business will tell you they've tried long and hard till they've come up with one. Like even like the one behind you, those are badass, and they you can do every expression that you want, but they're hot as hell, you know? And that's the biggest complaint people say. It's like, oh, I can only see. That was the thing with Dennis when I was, you know, I didn't want to copy Dennis, but I took notes from him.
Yeah.
And I watched what he said, that I can only go out like 45 minutes at a time. And then I got to go back to Bandit Slayer, and I got to take off, you know, everything and cool down. And he's wearing like cowboy boots. And I'm like, well, that can't be comfortable. And he had like spandex underneath, and it was all done up with, I think he told me he used yak hair.
Yeah.
And he said that it's like, that's what they put in like those super sleeping bags. And as much as he looked incredible, it was like, he was, you know, it was taking its toll on him. So I thought, I want to look good, but I want to make this. And every year I do something more to make it, you know, I'd steal little things from everybody that I talked to. To make the you know, I got the Under Armour, the pads for the sliding, the wearing another hood underneath to soak up the heat, the making of the gloves, the shoes. I mean, all that stuff. So many people had a hand in this costume, and they probably don't even know it, you know?
Wow.
So
what year was your first year?
98.
98.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you were what? You got into Ghost Town in 97?
Ghost Town 97. 96 was my first year at Haunt. 97 was Ghost Town, yeah. So 98, yeah, next year was you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started when I was like 32. All you guys were kids.
Yeah,
man.
we were babies. I was 22 or 23.
Yeah.
Something like that. So still a baby. So you Ghost Town the whole time.
Yeah. And you know, let's be honest. I mean, I'm no actor. And I hear people talking about, you know, the 5-year rule. I was talking with Chopper about this. It was, you know, we were more mature, and we were definitely huge. You know, I mean, he's 6'2", I'm 6'6".
Right.
And then, you know, I think Craig was like, those are some intimidating guys, and they're not going to, you know, be doing stupid shit like, you know, the 18-year-olds would do, because, you know, being an 18-year-old thrown into Haunt, that's got to be like a kid in a chocolate factory,
right?
You know, especially on streets.
Right.
So I'm sure that when he looks for people to do that, he looks for people that he thinks are mature enough to handle it. So
yeah.
But yeah, I walked right on, and then the first year, I don't know if you remember this because you were there, but they zoned us. There was 2 zones, and we swapped every other night. But we also didn't do like 26 nights. It was, I want to say my first year was either 13 or 16 nights. So, and you know,
it got more and more and more.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they picked up the Thursdays, and then they got the idea, well, hey, let's do a bargain Wednesday, and we won't do any shows. We'll just do the mazes and the monsters.
Yeah.
And we were like, you know, with our real jobs, we were like, I need more time off. You know? And they're like, what are you doing? You know, and then as soon as you told them, oh, the first thing out of their mouth, can you get tickets? And they never came. I worked 17 years, and there was only one time they ever gave us free tickets.
Yeah.
And that was because we were working in the time change, and they wanted us to stay on another hour. And they told us, we'll give you 2 free tickets to Haunt, because they'd always give us tickets to the regular part.
Right.
But everybody always, oh yeah. I said, I know I can't get you, I can get you discount, but I can't get you, you know, I can't get you tickets. So I think Knotts needs to step up a little bit on that, because especially maybe with, you know, if you put in your years, maybe at 5 years you get 2, at 10 years you get, you know, 4 or something like that
for the following year.
Yeah.
You know,
or instead of, you know, Crypt Cash, you know, they give you a couple tickets, you know, or, you know, who knows, some more. You know, the funny thing is, incentives, they always say, you get soda, free soda. But the thing is, when you're doing this, you don't want soda, because you want Gatorade and water, you know?
Yeah.
Because you get back there and soda just makes you you barf, you know. And it even got to the point where I'm like, how does these people eat this food? I'd be barfing my guts out, you know.
It was tough.
I remember that one year where it was like 110, like most of the, and we were like every 45 minutes we were going into Bandits Lair to suck water through. Mark Gargoyle gave us all metal straws, and we were sucking the water.
Yeah, because they would put the plastic ones out there, which was still cool. I thought that was pretty cool with the whole idea of the straws into the fountain.
Yeah,
you drank it better. Obviously we couldn't because we had the makeup or masks. So, and I
see pictures, you know, of us working, and we're all covered with the sweat stains and everything. And that was the nice thing about having your own costume, though. You could wash it or Febreze it at least. As to, you know, some of the newbies or the people that did the regular Knott's issued stuff, those poor guys, you only get your costume washed once a week.
Yep.
You know, so.
Yeah, and they use the fans to dry it off.
Oh,
it's just
God,
like that doesn't help the stench, man. Like you're just speeding up the curing of that stench.
Yeah.
Warehouse piece stunk, man. It always stunk. Yeah, my first year I did the issued costume, and then the second year I was like, nah, I can't do that again.
Yeah,
it's rough.
No, I needed, because like I said, you know, I was adding to it. And then, you know, when I got the pads, there's nothing there that would fit, because Chopper gave me he had some hockey pads. And then I got the motocross pads because it had the spine down the back. So when I reticulate, you know, the hair would poke out and it would look really cool.
Nice.
Because I slit the shirt in the back.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was, what was that called? Reticulated. Yeah, it looked really cool. You know, and then I found, because I got these boot things that kids would put over their boots for the forearm so I could tear the shirt back. Before I had to wear long sleeve shirts and use scare cloth. But like I said, every year there was the one thing that frustrated me the most, and this was something because Dennis had it. Dennis was in like the music industry, and he had this little speaker box.
Yeah.
And he had this voice changer, and it would make it sound like he was talking from the grave. And he would say, yeah, this is fun, but it doesn't last me more than a couple hours because the batteries wear out. But I cannot tell you how many I went to Guitar Center, and people don't realize how loud it is out there when you're fighting against the crowd noise and the soundtracks. I could never, and finally they made me a box, right? But I had to stand in one place and hit the button and then go, you know. And then when everybody realized where the button was, everybody started pressing the stupid button, and you know, it was like nonstop roar. And so I told my tech, I'm like, dude, put that button up high so people can't reach it. You know?
What year did they do that?
Dude, that's what I think maybe 2005, 2006. The box had gotten moved a few times because originally they put it up more the hotel. And I said, hey, I like to slide off of the porch. And it'd be cool if I could hit it, you know. And I got that idea from Universal. Yeah. Because they had done the volume thing. Right. And, you know, then there was the big controversy about the shaker cans. And I tell people this, and I said, the thing that's about the shaker can is it's loud. Yeah. And you can jump out and scream, and, you know, people won't hear you. Yeah. You know, you need something to get their attention. And then once you get their attention and they see you, that's kind of where the scare comes in. Well, the shaker can evolved into the thunder jug. Right. And that really, this year I went as a guest. Freaking Naaman lit me up, and he wasn't even trying for me. I was just standing there, and he got somebody, and I jumped out of my skin. But yeah, I mean, noise. I mean, if I'm sitting here or you're sitting there, and I just, you know, that's going to scare. That's the whole idea. It's volume scares people. Yeah, you know,
yeah, especially when they're not paying attention.
Exactly, and then if you have a scary looking costume to back it up, that's even better. I mean, if you know, if you if you scare somebody and they jump and turn around and see something that's not particularly scary, you're not going to get them as bad as, you know, a 7-foot werewolf.
I was about to say, especially when you're 6'6".
Or you know, or the funny thing is, you know, when I was sliding, you know, I was a knee slider. I could very rarely, because I had too much weight up front. My gloves were more like training wheels.
Right.
But when I'm sliding, I was eye to eye with a lot of people.
Yeah.
You see this thing coming at you, man. The looks, I wish I'd had a GoPro at the time, you know,
right.
to get the looks on people when they saw what was coming at them, you know, because like I said, I was eye to eye with about half of that crowd, you know.
That's funny. So what was your last year?
2014. No, yeah, 2014. I went out with a big.
You went out with everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, for me, when in the early days, it was all about the scaring, and then later on, it became more about I didn't want to let go of the character. I had so much fun with the character. So many people knew the character.
Yeah.
But you know, and this is just my personal opinion. I think with the invent of the cell phone, we lost a lot of the attention of the crowd.
Oh yeah.
Because in the early days, people were, you know, there was like, where are you know, I see you, you know, it's like we really had a captive audience. And in the later days, you know, the people walking down like, yeah, don't bug me. You know, it's like, and it was like, this isn't fun for me, you know, and I'm not getting the scares that I used to get. And they took a lot of stuff out. Like, it was fun to like go back behind the graveyard, and they had like this wood fence, and we'd hide, and people would be coming out, and we'd jump out. I mean, I've got pictures of that. And, you know, or they had like the wagon, and I remember one year they had this glass blowing building, right? And we thought it was going to be a pain in the butt, but it ended up like getting people, like it funneled them right at us.
Yeah. And
so we'd hide on one side, we'd hide up in the wagon. We even on rainy nights, we'd like get, you know, like down crouched, and they wouldn't notice us, and we'd slam up against the plexiglass.
Oh, nice.
And oh my God, it just would scare you. Or Chopper, he would stand up in the wagon, and you wouldn't notice him because it was dark, and it was like a tin roof, and he'd bang on the tin roof, and people would be like, oh my God. So I got some footage of that too. So
just give me one.
And you were talking about on one of your things about sliding in the square. I've got a full-on thing of that where you're doing the spins and the jumps and the I mean, it's really cool. I'll have to show that to you.
Yeah. Just I'll have to give you access to like my cloud drive, and then you can just upload there. Yeah. You can upload all your photos and stuff, and then I can use those for like the marketing your episode and all that. So you end 2014, you end and from what I heard, didn't you go work at like Coffin Creek or something? You did another event, right?
I did Coffin Creek one year, and a friend of mine was she was vending, she made like Halloween stuff she was selling, and she's like, hey, it'd be really cool if you come out and take pictures you know, with the people. She was telling me there was mazes and stuff out there. And it just turned out Paul Frechette and some of those guys were out there. Mm-hmm. And when they saw me, they're like, oh, dude, you got to come scare with us. We're going to go scare, you know. And Veronica and her husband were running that thing. And they're like, oh, yeah, if you want to scare, go scare. And I'm like, cool. And it brings up a funny story. I was scaring in one of the lines out there as people were going into one of the mazes. And I'm scaring these kids, right? And their aunt is freaking Ronda Rousey. and she gets up in my face and she's flexing, and I'm like, I know you. And she's like, let's do it, you know. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to get embarrassed in front of these kids.
You're like, I'm big and intimidating, but I don't want to get beat up.
Yeah. And then so, you know, I was figuring that later on in the night she was going to come up top to where the booth was and I could take a picture. And I see all the kids coming up, and they got their other aunt with them, and I'm like, where's Rhonda? And it's like, oh, her kids were getting or the kids she brought were getting tired, so she had to take them home. I'm like, shit,
That's why you got to do it all right then and there. Do it right then and there so you don't miss that moment.
But, and again, it's like I get accused of doing that a lot, but I didn't want to, like, they were going in, and it was like I didn't want to, kind of like get out of what I was supposed to be doing at the time.
Right.
So that's why I figured when she comes up there, because they had a photo place set up to do it,
Gotcha.
So.
Well, that's cool. And then that was it. You just did that event.
I did that, and I did a couple parties for Haley. Again, Paul. I mean, we did this girl she knows does a haunted house every year, and she's like, hey, guys, come on, if you want to not do anything, come on out. We did it like 2 or 3 years, but it was Gary, Paul Frechette, his wife, Jen Zeeland. I mean, God, Veronica. I mean, it was like all the who's who of Knott's Berry. I mean, it was kind of like an all-star cast out there. I mean, I couldn't believe the people she had. And we had this girl set up a maze in her driveway, and it was for her guests. And then, after we did that, we went in and partied. It was like a big Halloween party. It was a lot of fun. This guy had a beautiful house. It was all like Gothic inside, these big doors carved out of wood, and all the decorations were really Gothic. I mean, I think it looked like that most of the time, even when it wasn't Halloween. It looked pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I think we went through everything. I mean, you were in Ghost Town for how many years total? 2007.
Well, yeah, no, it was from 98 to 2014, and yeah, and like I said, when I met you and you did the mask, this is kind of where I transitioned over. Everybody was saying, so that's like a life kit you can see in that. And I said, oh yeah, I can see. It's like, I got my own face out here, and everybody's like, you should slide, And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But everybody was kind of pushing. And so I went, at that time you had to not audition, but you had to test, right?
Get certified.
Yeah. So, and Scott and Wade were doing the certification, and I went over with Chopper, and we tested, and I didn't pass the first time. They were like, you kind of don't, you don't have the control that you need, but he's like, go practice. We're going to test again in a week. So I come back, right? And I'm better. And I see him kind of like discussing it, and they're like, okay, we're going to certify you, because they say, well, you slide like George, or there was some other big guy. And they're like, just don't slide at anybody at first,
Yeah.
Kind of like go between them or slide, go with them. Right.
Right.
And so, it's funny because when you're sliding in a course or out at the rink, there's no people in the mix.
Yeah.
When you put people in the mix, that's a whole different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
That's like if you learn to drive in like the mall parking lot, it's composed to when you get on the freeway and everybody, coming at you.
Yep.
And it kind of took me a little while to get dialed in to the people thing. And the funny thing, I don't know, and you can verify this too, like every time you slide, even when like if you're sliding, your first slide is always scary. It's like when you get in a fight and you get hit for the first time and you're like, oh, that's not so bad. And so but when you hit, everybody says, oh, you're going to mess up your knees, you're going to this and that.
Yeah.
The equipment was so good. The only problem I had was my thighs. Like it wasn't the going down in the slide, it was the coming up and stopping.
Yeah. It's when you're bigger and not even just fat, like you're just a big guy.
Yeah, no, I was
that's
260.
a lot. Dude, that's a lot of weight to
and
have
I've got
to
the costume on too.
Yeah.
And but I mean, to my credit, at that time I was in pretty good shape athletically. I was going to the gym and working out, and I was playing sports, and and stuff like that. And, you know, here I'm coming in thinking, oh, this is going to crush my knees. And I had a bad knee from playing volleyball, which I kind of had to favor. But you go home at night and your feet and your calves and your thighs and my knees and my hands were fine, you know? And the funny thing is, as I went along in the year, see this, I always told everybody this was going to be like an alternate scare for me. And it's addicting, man. It's like crack. It's all you want to do. Is. Yeah.
Because they're great scares, and they're pretty much 98% a guaranteed scare.
Yeah.
So when you're
I was telling Chopper, I remember one of the first times I saw you or noticed you, it was early on, and it was raining, and they told you guys you couldn't slide. And you're all like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" You know, and I'm like, "He doesn't have any other." And so here I am thinking, you know, like, "Oh, I can do this and I can do that." But once I started sliding, I totally knew where you were coming from, because, like I said, it just, you want to do it all the time, or you see somebody and you know you can get there before they're gonna see you coming.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I played football in high school. And you're just looking for those little, when it got crowded, you were looking for those little holes to get through, and you got braver and braver, you know, as you got more tuned in. And then you go back to break and you come out and you be all stiff, and you're like, oh man, it's like starting over every time. You know?
My first year was like that. It was like, I had that mentality of every scare had to be a slide, and it nearly like broke me. But you learn how to utilize it as an additional scare tactic. So I had to learn how to roam and be a roamer and be able to stalk and be able to lunge and be able to, you know, do like pop out scares. And I learned that going to and from break or going to different areas, because, you know, you would be walking behind one group, and then you through that group, you see a group coming, and then you can like pop out at them real quick, or you use your gloves, or slap your knee pads, you know, for that sound.
Oh yeah, they have big later on. They're like, oh, if you're not a slider, don't wear the gloves. But you know, they took away the shaker cans, and I don't know why they didn't take away the thunder. I thought that was going to be the next thing. But the gloves, you know, they again volume, but something you didn't have to deal with because you when did you leave the first time? Because I know you came back.
I left the 2006.
Okay, so that was like I was 3 years into sliding. They started repaving the goddamn place.
They did it literally. I think they did it like the second year after I was gone, I believe, is roughly around that time. I heard about it and I was like, oh, that sucks. So when I went to haunt the couple years later, I was feeling the ground and I'm like, ooh, this is brutal. But
so where we usually would hang out on the porch, I tried sliding off that one and the whole damn ripped everything off. It was so bad. Yeah. But there were people that were determined that they were going to slide there. And so they got metal pads or bigger pads and tried wearing it down. So we all kind of gravitated over to Ghost Rider. Yeah. And then when they decided to start putting the mazes in the back, surprisingly, the asphalt was pretty good too. Yeah. Back where they had the gypsy camp, you could get up along the walls, and then you even had the downhill into the kind of like where the drainage was. Right. And that was pretty good back in there. But yeah, I mean, it's my days went on, there became less and less places to slide that you felt comfortable with. But you know, like I said, some of these kids, man, they're so light and I'm so heavy. It was a lot different from them when they hit the ground. They didn't hit it with such force. So I
noticed that difference. The difference of the ground, but as well as my weight. Yeah. Because when I went back in 2015, that was many years later. I was at a computer for so long. Yeah. So I thickened up. Yeah. And so I didn't anticipate the additional weight because I just didn't think about it. I wasn't in shape. So I did stretch and did all that safety precaution stuff. And but when I did my first slide, I made sure I didn't do it in front of anybody. Right. I did it like we're out, you know. And when I dropped, because I didn't know where were the good spots where I dropped, and it was literally like.
That was funny because that was something that in one of the episodes. I think Dietz or Wade was talking. Dietz was saying he didn't want to slide with Wade. I would like when the early days of sliding, I would wait for them to go on break, and then I would slide off the porch because I didn't want them to see me.
Yeah.
And then one day they came out and they're like, "Why you always leave when we come out here?" I said, "Because I don't want to like screw up in front of you guys." And they're like, "Well, why don't you hang with us for a little while? We'll show you some of the techniques and stuff."
Yeah.
And those guys took so much shit for hanging out on the porch, but I got to tell you, man, there were some of the hardest working guys, and the things Wade could go just drop and come up.
Yeah.
Because him and Dietz were built like a Porsche, not like a vet. The bigger guys like me, we gotta get the flow, but he could just drop to his knees and come up. And you got to be in shape to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, they'd scare the piss out of people. And it was half of us, we'd be trying not to laugh and be, "What you laughing at? What's the monster laughing at?" And they're like, because he got you so good. And even that one time you were talking about, like, Dietz said he would hit like someone in the back. I remember me and Dietz went for the same scare one time, and I landed on his back. He's like, "Jesus Christ, man, what are you trying to do?" And I'm like, "That was mine." So we started calling things out pretty soon, or you kind of have to look at them and kind of figure out, if they were looking at the same guy you were looking at,
Yeah, and that's the thing a lot of people don't understand when it comes to sliding, or don't realize that when it comes to sliding is when you're sliding with a group of people, especially back then, there would be like 6 of us.
Yeah.
In the one spot, because it was the spot to be. Like like the Schoolhouse Road, that used to be the spot where the candy shop used to be.
Right.
And there would be literally 6, 7, 8 of us.
Yeah.
And it was tough to judge like who was going to go
that was
win.
another reason too. I didn't want to crowd them, but then they said no, stick, because they had it was Dietz, Wade, and Josh for a long time, and then Josh was gone. And Mark would be like a decoy, or Bobo would be like a decoy. He'd set them up.
Yep.
And we'd just knock them down. It was just, there were nights it was just a blast. And I think those are the nights I missed the most, when I was just like hitting on all cylinders, and you could do no wrong. And you'd think in all those years I would have had more incidents, but I can only remember like maybe on one hand where I wiped a few people out, and usually I'd wrap them up, so that I wouldn't hurt them.
Yep.
Somebody did that, was a kid one time. I want to say it was Marshman, but it might've been somebody. He totally hit this kid, and he grabbed him and turned and slid on his back, and the kid was fine.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're bound to have an incident like that.
Oh yeah.
It's just a matter of how you can recover from it, and
you got to
do it
judge
safely.
too what you think that person's going to do. And sometimes if they don't do anything, it's
well, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Because you're going based off of what they're doing when you see it, as you go for the scare. But the second you drop, they can quickly change, quickly turn, quickly they can stop.
It didn't happen too often, but it did. And like I said, you kind of have to see you're out.
Yeah.
And if they move into your out, then but like I said, that didn't happen all that much. So
yeah. Luckily, I never had any big incidences. I've had a couple times where I've had to hug somebody, or I've had to bail out. I have video of me bailing out where I almost freaking hit. I almost slammed right into somebody, and I missed them by a hair. Yeah. Because Chris and I were trying to do something stupid.
The only one I heard that was really bad was the one that I mean, this is a rumor, that ended the sliding show. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he dressed up as a Union soldier. And I guess he was jumping, and they said his arms gave out and he smashed his face, and they had to take him to the hospital.
That was Ryan. That was Ryan Thompson, who I'm gonna get on here too. But I remember that we were fucking scared. We thought he knocked himself out. It was scary. Yeah. And I don't know if that was what ended it, but I do believe that was the last year. But that was a pretty bad incident, because
that's the only one that I heard of that was bad. I mean, I heard of like before I was sliding, I remember I was filming one night, and Diane was sliding, and I got her on film, and she pulled a hamstring, right? And so I see her limping back over, And I came up and I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? And she's like, you saw that? I said, I not only saw it, I got it on film. And she grabbed me by the shirt and she goes, if you tell anybody, I'll kick your ass.
Oh, that's
And
hilarious.
I'm like, you want to work that bad that you're going to work hurt? And she's like, yeah. I said, if I tell them I'm hurt, they'll never let me come back.
Yeah. That incident was crazy because it was the last show and he went down and he didn't get up.
Yeah, I heard his arms just gave out.
Yeah, he was tired. He told me, he like before the show, he's like, I'm so exhausted, and I'm like, all right, we'll just take it easy, And he just decided, and it wasn't even a big jump.
Sliding's it's like any other athlete. And the one thing they teach you is when you start feeling fatigue, that's when you gotta stop, because that's when the shit. I remember playing soccer, and my dad always would end it. I'm like, no, I want to keep playing. He's like, trust me. So this is where people get hurt, and we don't have players for the games, and you've got to know when to say no, as well as
when you get that adrenaline though, especially when you do something like the sliding show. Spotlights on you, you get the adrenaline, or you want to do your moves, and it's just like I've done the sliding show numerous times exhausted. And I wouldn't do anything nuts, but I would try to do something, and my body would just be like, nah, dude.
Where did the freaking energy come? Because we were all doing the same shit. We were all working like 8-hour jobs, and we'd drive to Knott's. We'd work till 2 a.m. Back in the days. They staggered. There was one year where we what was the fake punchline was all your fears are here until 9 a.m. or 9 p.m.
Yeah.
When they started staggering the thing. But man, some of us, you get like 4 hours sleep a night, especially, on the weekends, you wouldn't get out of there. And I remember the most tiring thing was a goddamn walk to the car in the parking lot, especially if you were way out.
If you're way out in the dirt. I'm surprised to this day they haven't even fucking paved. Cheap asses.
Still haven't?
Dude, they're so cheap, it's not even funny, man.
Oh my God.
That's ridiculous. When it rains, that sucks being out there.
Oh, I bet.
I used to get there early just to get a spot on the cement.
Yeah.
Because, and then when my brother lived across the street, that was awesome.
Oh, that must have been nice.
Oh my God, I parked there and I would just walk across. It was beautiful. And then Scott's, I believe a couple nights when I worked in 2015, I would just walk from Scott's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's pretty close.
I remember there was one time it was a huge wake up call for me. It was during the last run, the last week. We were doing like 7 days in a row.
Yeah.
And we were like halfway through working. I'd worked second job like everybody else, or a good majority of us at least. And I was driving home, and I was about a mile away from my house, and I was at a stoplight, and then next thing you know, I'm being woken up by a cop knocking on my window at the light. At the light. God. Yeah, he was next to his car was next to me. He's tapping. And he's like, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And I'm like, I go, hey, what's going on? He's like, you were asleep. Are you okay? Is everything, And he's like, can you pull over? And I pulled over, and he's like, I go, dude, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I worked 2 jobs. I just came back from that scary farm. And luckily I had my box in the back. So, he can see my box. And
right.
And he's like, all right, I'll follow you. I go, I'm just a mile away. He's like, okay, I'll follow you home. He followed me all the way to my house. Yeah. But like, that was like, from that point on, continuing to the many years, like there are points I would have to like in the middle of the night, like in the middle of the run at Haunt, I would just kind of sneak away. And you mentioned the 2 fences in the graveyard, the exit of the barn. Well, if you go over that the left side, if you're facing the barn, you could jump over to the left side. There was a mattress there, which was the mattress that the stuntman would fall on.
Oh wow!
I would periodically, if I was too tired, I would go there and I would crash for an hour.
Yeah, it's funny you say it because the second year I was working, and I was putting the black makeup on the eyes, right? And I'm driving home at night, and I got pulled over by a cop. He said I had like a tail light out, and he comes up on me, and I look at him. He's like, what is up with you? And he sees, like the okay, so I had the eye black on. Mm-hmm. And he was like, what in the hell are you like, I've seen like, oh, what's that? And I explained to him, and thank God, like Knott's was right up the street, and I told him and he's like, oh, okay. But I was also like, I was saying that when my kids were little, I wanted to go trick-or-treating with them. And I think it was Halloween night. So I said, okay, I'll trick-or-treat with my kids, and then I'm going to go work the later part. And I thought, I can see fine. I'm just going to drive in this thing tonight. And the looks I got from people, I'm looking over at them, and it's just like, it was just the unsureness to the look of terror. It was so much fun to do that.
That was us when we did a promotional thing for Haunt. I want to say it was for the Register or some parade that we did, and we had to wake up at like 5 a.m. We had to go to Knott's. They put the makeup on, and then we drove from Knott's to the Orange Circle, because that's where the parade was, and we were literally in makeup over 24 hours. It was nuts. It was so. You froze again. You fucking froze again. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so you're going to Knott's.
So we had to go to Knott's and get the makeup on at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And we drove our own cars in makeup from there in our costumes all the way over to the Orange Circle to do this like parade in the morning. And we didn't get back until like super, super late. So we were in our faces for a long, and they wouldn't take it off unless we were at Knott's.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah. That's one of the things I regret that I didn't get to do, is that I would have loved to do some of the promo stuff, because I heard they had some fun doing that.
I'm surprised they did it, because they started showcasing a lot of their iconic characters.
Yeah,
but maybe they did it after you left.
With as many iconic characters as Knott's had, you would think that they would have gotten into the marketing of
we won't even get into that. That was.
I mean, they just started doing that now, and it's cool, and I love seeing the artwork and stuff like that, and some of the shirts are getting certain characters on them.
Well, the only person that I know back in the day was when it was during the time that Haunted Media was coming around. They were doing the DVD and all that stuff. Rick West was coming around. He was out, and he had his theme park adventures, I think it was, website, and he was doing shirts of the monsters.
Oh, was he?
Which I was like, that's dope, but you need to get your crap together, because you're missing out on something. And that was back when I was like back in the freaking 2000.
Yeah, because we had like Sandy, we had Skittles, we had the Witch, we had the Bride. There's a Rat Man, the Light. I mean, you had so many named. Now it's kind of like a mishmash. I mean, we know in our inner circle, but you would think that they would have taken advantage, but I don't know. I heard they were making so much money they really didn't care.
And they don't, because to them it wasn't the characters that were making the event. They had their own. They still, to a point, still do, and it's mainly because a lot of the same people are at the top in making the decisions. But when I was there, we couldn't take pictures. 2015. They had this issue with people with monsters taking pictures, and I'm like, this is the time to do so. You're out of your mind. Like this, people can hashtag Scary Farm. Like, why don't you guys have picture spots? But no, they want to just do it they'll pull in their own monsters, and they'll do it just for the celebrities, because they're whatever.
You know what I really think it was? I mean, I get, it's like you want to have a scare event for everybody. It's like that's what they're there for, right? But I think it was because Knott's used to be the only game in town.
Used to.
And then when you started getting more competition, they had to raise the bar. So they had to say, if you're coming to our park, we're going to scare you, because Universal, they don't do pictures for shit. Right.
Right.
But at the same time, there has to be like a happy medium that they could do. Because I remember early on in when we first started working, they had the snap things up in front, and they had contracted with Knott's to have monsters up there, and we did a rotation. And they would come back and they said, you can volunteer or we'll put you up there, because they got to have like 4 or 5 monsters. And every time they would ask me to do it, and I was kind of flattered by that. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to go out and have fun too, right?
Right.
because we didn't have as many nights and stuff. And I'm like, why do they want me to come up there? And the guy said, well, because when you come up there, you sell the pictures. And so they like, and I'm like, well, that's an ego boost, but it's like, I could see. And so why wouldn't you take other characters too that, and have a time or a section where you roll them through?
I just think it's a missed opportunity. They could, because when I was there, I'm like, they can literally set up a photo cove area and hire a couple people specifically for that, and do their really get their top makeup artists and do a good job on their makeup and their costumes, because it's specifically for photo ops. Because you're missing out on social media. Are you there? Are you there? Hello.
I see you talking about it. I don't hear you talking.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now you're frozen.
Oh my God. What is going on?
There we go.
Okay. But they can get monsters that will be like specific for photo ops, great makeup, and use those, because they're missing out on a lot of social media traffic. Yeah, because you never know who comes into that park,
right?
That have 1 million followers, or however, or is a lower class YouTube person that has 100,000 people. It's like that is what I still to this point don't understand. They're just all about the celebrities, and and then still pulling their monsters that are scaring or supposed to be scaring, and pulling them into these photo ops for these celebrities. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I get they have a few million followers, but like, wouldn't you rather get, a few thousand people posting as opposed to 1 or 2 or 3 or you get to see my point? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense for marketing. Yeah. It's free fucking marketing. Free marketing, dude. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. But whatever. So, not my bag.
It's just us. Like I said, who knows how they think, like I said, when I listened to the radio show in the morning, the Heidi Frosty, or it wasn't Frosty, or Heidi and Frank, and they're saying, like, why doesn't this guy do that? And they've gotten to the point where they've got people calling in and say, fuck Keith, and they drop a quarter in the thing. And I'm like, he's got to be in on this, because they bag on him so much, about his bad ideas. So
that's funny.
So, yeah.
Who knows? But is there anything else you want to talk about?
Dude, we could go on all fucking night. I don't want to keep you here all night. What time is it?
We've been going for an hour and almost an hour and a half. You cut out. Can't hear you.
I don't hear you.
Are you on Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why?
Yeah. Well, that's what you keep cutting out.
Oh, do I? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to we can keep going.
Whatever
you think people want to hear, stories. Well, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your. How many partners have you had?
As far as people that I've hung with?
No, sexually, of course. Come on, dude.
Well, no, okay. Jesus Christ, man, we're gonna go there.
Yeah, like, how long did you roam by yourself for? Quite a bit.
Pretty much. Like, when I first started out, before I started sliding, I tried to hang with Chris, aka Chopper, but I don't know. I mean, he's he doesn't look like it, but he's hard to keep up with.
No, he moves around a lot.
And the other, and plus the other thing that happened was, people would want to take pictures, and I'm, a sucker for the picture.
You're a picture whore.
So there was Jake that I hung with,
right?
And then the next guy I met was the guy named Mike Kidder, and Mike was a funny guy, because how they said you had to get your costume checked out or okayed, right? Well, Mike had 3 different costumes, and he never got them. Like, he got one of them checked out, but he would wear the other 2, and he had some badass costumes. I mean, he had we called one Anubis, one was Leon Neon, and he was like a dripping zombie. He looked like a candle almost. And then he had an Ed Gein character. And I remember he'd be out there and I'd always see Craig walking by. He goes, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's Mike." He's like, "Oh." And he never did anything about it. I thought Craig would come down on him, but
Yep.
Mike kind of just did his thing, and he was so good at it,
Yeah.
So
Well, that's what saved him.
He ended up going back to South Carolina.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and I never saw him again. I should have kept in touch because we had some good times. Especially, I have one. There was another big guy. I think his name was Tom, and I had a white werewolf mask that I let him use. So it was me and Chopper and Tiny and Anubis. And I even did a video. I'll see if I send you that one where we stood and it was like old school. You didn't have the CGI stuff that you have now. So we stood still as ourselves, and then I morphed them into our characters.
Oh, nice.
And it was pretty cool. So then, so Mike ends up leaving, and then I just started hanging out with Chopper. And then when I started sliding, I was just doing my own thing. I'd hang out with Wade. I'd hang out with Dieterman. And remember Izzo?
Yep.
He was kind of fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
I just would get tired of being in one spot, and I'd go from place to place. I hung out with who were the guys? We hang out in the back. I know it was Chris for sure, but and we do the pop out scares. And we'd hide behind the fences and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean later. So after 2003, I started getting in more with the sliding crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just kind of like I said, it was hard to keep up with Chopper and keep moving. And I wanted to slide and I wanted to take pictures with people. But it was almost like pick a character tonight that you kind of want to hang with. And that's another thing. I kind of wish I'd developed better relationships. I mean, everybody knew me and I was friends with everybody, but I think Chris was the one I was the tightest with, as far as someone that when we go back to break, it was basically me and him, because we worked Ghost Town. We both worked Ghost Town for our whole careers.
Right.
So
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we'll just end it here. I mean, we went through. It's kind of hard to go through the years because like same thing with me. It was like I went through different characters, but for you, you only went through one character the whole time. I didn't
hear what you said. Say that again.
Oh, I said.
There you go.
What part did you not hear?
Everything.
Oh, I said we'll end it here. We'll end it right here.
Okay.
Because it's you were there, like you were in Ghost Town the whole time as the same character, which is super impressive, and and I saw the progression of your character, and even when I left, I saw it via social media and stuff. So
there's been a lot of great haunt monsters, but they've done a lot of different characters.
Yeah.
There's only been a handful of us that have done the same, even though, like with Chris, even though he's changed faces, he's still been Chopper his whole run.
Right.
I don't think there's, Wade was Goblin, I think, from his Ghost Town.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think too many people, there's probably a handful of us that have been the same character. And that's something else too, the differentiation between like someone like Spaz is Spaz. We know Spaz is Gary, but I couldn't tell you a name of Gary's character.
Right.
As to where like some people, them as like their character could be their haunt name.
Right. Or
it could be somebody, like Dietz was Pyro, right?
Yeah.
But we kind of called him Dietz.
Right.
I think he was he Pyro the whole run, or did he?
Nope.
He changed up.
He had. Well, I mean, he had his characters in the mazes that he did,
No, I'm not counting. I'm saying once you come to Ghost Town, there wasn't too many. Like the witch was the witch, the bride was the bride.
Well, he had this. He had an alien face, and then he had this other thing they called brain. Some brain.
Yeah.
And then he did Pyro, and then he was Pyro the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had 3 characters.
I remember Lucky and obviously Ghost Rider.
Yeah, see, Lucky. Yeah, I had Lucky. I had the Bone Brother, Lucky, and then Ghost Rider. And then one night I had a very special character that I did, but
well, yeah, I remember because you were talking about that.
Shit was funny, dude. It was so that was like one of my best nights.
Or remember like when Jeff and those guys did the crows and stuff like that. That was kind of cool.
Oh, and then Spawn. I did Spawn a few nights too. So
Spawn was cool.
Yeah, those
I like Spawn, but I really like him, Paulus Spats. That guy, that was just creepy. Yeah. And the same thing. Remember Steve Vautrin,
the monk.
He did the priest, but I love the Phantom of the Flowers, that because he was like spooky when he did that.
When he did the Phantom, he was stealthy.
Yeah,
he was really creepy. He was stealthy because he would move quick and stuff, and he kind of did that as the priest, but he was a little slower. I
don't know how he walked like that for 8 hours a night.
I don't know, man, but I can't wait to hear his story. I want to get him on here too, man.
Yeah, the shaking.
Yeah. Oh, he was so good. When we first saw that, we were like, "What, dude?" Yeah. He never broke character. Ever broke character.
Some people have some pretty cool sticks out there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So are you? Oh, so I guess we'll end it on this last question. Are you? Are you thinking about going back for the 50th?
Funny you should ask that. Like I said, COVID screwed up a lot of things, and I very much want to. The brain is saying yes. The body is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've also kind of tossed around doing the scare thing, and as far as like the talent captain. Oh, okay. And I wouldn't care if they stuck me in a maze, or I'd like to try that experience to see what it's like because I coached for a long time.
Yeah.
My kids, and I think it would kind of be like that. And like I could bring my experience to it. So I think I'd be good at it, but yeah, the funny thing is when I first retired, everybody's like, "Oh, you're going to come back." I didn't miss it. I thought I'd miss it because in the early days, like if I was sick, I was like, "Oh, I got to be there." But you're just like, but when I left, it was like, no, I'm happy. I'm not happy, but if I could do this mask for 5 years,
you cut out.
I think I could knock out another year, especially if they were. And I hear they're really strict now and they micromanage. So I don't know. I mean, I could ask. I mean, worst they could say is no. And it depends on my job situation and where I am at the time, what I'm doing. But yeah, it's definitely crossed my mind. I think the last couple of years, last year was the worst Halloween ever. I did absolutely nothing because we were all locked down.
Right.
And then this year I thought, I'm going to do, I got to Knott's a few times and I enjoyed it a lot. I think I did 2 or 3 times as a guest, but I wanted to see other places. I always say I'm going to do other places. And then I see all my friends putting on, Facebook, "Oh, we did this." I'm like, "Geez, give me a call. Give a guy a call." Maybe I should be the one reaching out. I don't know. I just yelled at Dale. He said he did some con the other night, some clown con. And I'm like, dude, give me because I used to go to cons. We did a con with, and I guess I know you're running, we get in on this, but I went one year with Ted to a haunt. I think it wasn't Haunt X. It was like a haunt con. And we went to Dallas, Texas. Right.
Oh, wow.
And in just outside of Dallas, Texas was this small amusement park. And it kind of had a mock-up of the Haunted Mansion. And it was called Verdun Manor. Uh-huh. And the guy who ran it had just died. But the people that worked there and the wife kept it going. And we went out there to film it. And we just had an absolute blast. In fact, I got video of it and everything. And my mask was left. I left my mask at the hotel. And I'm like, oh my God, if we'd because both me and Ted were like, we'd love to work this thing, but it was too far to go back and get it. I'm sure he'll tell you about it. But they had that. And they had the most awesome Halloween party. And the funny thing was, at the same night they had the Halloween party for the convention, it was prom season.
Oh, wow.
And there were a bunch of proms. And these girls, these 18-year-old girls, got a look at us, and they weren't having any of it. And there was another guy, and I got to show you a picture of this guy. But I walked out of my hotel room, and we literally ran into each other in the hallway, and he was a werewolf, except he was more of the Wolfman kind.
Oh, okay.
He was more human looking, but he had these long, lanky arms. I mean, he really, the hair was, and he was funny as hell. And me and him, we just decided we were going to have fun, and we were scaring people in the restaurant. We were scaring people in the proms, and the chaperones are, what the hell's going on? Who are these kids? And we'd run back into the Halloween party if they were coming after. One lady's going, sir, that's not funny, sir.
Oh my God. You're like, it's very funny.
Yeah. Good old days. I'd love to go do something like that again. That would be so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll end it here.
Okay.
But it was, dude, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no, I saw this and I'm like, oh man, I hope he calls me, because I'd love to chit chat with him about things, because I haven't done any of these. I've seen other people doing them, and it's like,
well, I
got a lot of memories.
Yeah, I'm mapping out and trying to put together a list of like people that I want to get like kind of like a group thing going.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And get everybody on, just kind of sharing stories of like, favorite scares and stuff like that, which would be rad. It's going to be a complete cluster F, because, you'll have a bunch of people that just, like to talk about what they do. It's just going to be like, it'll be tough to moderate. All right, well, we'll end it here. Do you have any social medias that you want to plug or anything?
No, I'm not. The only thing I'm on is Facebook, because I'm an old guy. I don't have Instagram or Twitter. I probably should look into it and stuff like that, or at least do some kind of web page, because I got video and pictures up the wazoo. So.
Because then you post stuff on YouTube, right?
I did, and I think what I'll do is I'll take it off of there and I'll put it onto some kind of hard drive and put it on one of your guys' website, or someone where people can actually see it or know where to go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can.
I'll give you everything I got, man. So.
All right. I'll set up a folder, and you can just drop everything in there and go from there.
All right.
Well, we're gonna end the episode here, but thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode. Please like and subscribe and share this with your friends. We'll see you next time.